Did you know that over 1.8 million temporary visa holders in Australia could be at risk of losing their right to stay by October 2025? It sounds unbelievable, but it's real. A massive immigration shakeup is coming, and it could force millions of people to either pack their bags or scramble to meet stricter, more complicated visa rules. From international students to skilled workers, even long-term residents who thought they were on a clear path to permanent residency might suddenly find themselves on the edge of deportation. What's happening? Why now? And who exactly is at risk? The Australian government is tightening its grip on the migration system like never before, and the clock is ticking. This isn't just policy. It's a life-changing turning point for thousands of families. In this video, we're revealing the 10 biggest reasons why so many could be forced to leave. Stay with us, this affects more people than you think. Number 10. Rise in application rejections and processing delays. One of the most alarming changes shaking Australia's immigration landscape in 2025 is the sharp rise in visa rejections and never-ending processing delays. It's no longer just about submitting the right documents. It's about navigating a minefield of new rules, technical loopholes, and stricter scrutiny. In fact, recent reports show that rejection rates have surged by over 30% across several visa categories, with even genuine, well-prepared applications being knocked back over minor errors. Whether it's a small typo, a missing payslip, or a misunderstood requirement, applicants are now being penalized harshly. And the worst part? Even when an application is flawless, it can still get stuck in a black hole of delays. Some applicants have waited 12 to 18 months, only to be told they need to resubmit everything due to policy updates that occurred while they were waiting. This creates a dangerous trap for many migrants who find themselves in legal limbo, unable to work, study, or even leave the country without risking a ban. In some cases, people have unknowingly become unlawful non-citizens, simply because their visa expired while waiting for a response. These delays aren't just frustrating, they're life-altering. Families are left separated, careers are put on hold, and students are forced to abandon years of education. The government says it's due to a transition period as they roll out a more digitized and points-based system. But for many, it feels like they're being punished for playing by the rules. If you're planning to apply, renew, or switch your visa, you can't afford to make mistakes right now. Triple-check every detail, seek legal advice, and don't leave anything to chance. Backhand index pointing right if you've experienced delays or rejections. Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for real-time updates that could save your visa and your future in Australia. Number 9. Scrutiny of low-quality education providers. A major shakeup in Australia's immigration strategy is the intensified crackdown on low-quality education providers, especially private colleges that have long been used as a backdoor for visa approvals. For years, certain institutions have operated more like visa mills than educational bodies, offering cheap courses with little academic value, primarily to help international students gain entry and stay in the country. But in 2025, the Australian government is closing in on this loophole, and the consequences are hitting thousands of students hard. New regulations are being rolled out to audit and shut down education providers that fail to meet strict quality standards. This includes colleges with low attendance rates, poor academic outcomes, or those found to be linked to migration fraud or document falsification. Once a provider is blacklisted or loses its accreditation, all current student visas linked to that institution are automatically placed under review, and in many cases canceled entirely. This means international students who've already paid their fees, moved to Australia, and even completed part of their studies could be forced to leave the country through no fault of their own. Many are left scrambling to transfer to a reputable institution, often at much higher costs, and with no guarantee that their existing visa will still be valid. The scrutiny isn't just about education, it's also a migration control tool. The government sees these low-quality colleges as part of a larger problem: exploitation of the student visa system to stay in Australia without legitimate intent to study. By tightening regulation around education providers, the government is making it harder for non-genuine students to enter, while also putting pressure on genuine students to prove their academic intentions and financial capacity. Number 8. Migration caps and population targets. One of the most significant shifts in Australia's immigration policy in 2025 is the introduction of strict migration caps and population targets. For the first time in years, the government is placing hard limits on how many people can enter and stay in the country through various visa pathways, signaling a clear move toward tighter population control. This policy is being driven by increasing public concern over housing shortages, infrastructure strain, and rising cost of living, especially in major cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Under this strategy, the total number of permanent and temporary visas granted each year is being capped, with priority given to high-income earners, critical skill sectors, and regional migration. This means fewer places are available for general skilled migration, family reunions, and international students. As a result, even qualified applicants who would have been approved under previous policies are now facing rejection, not because they don't meet the requirements, but because the quota is already full. These caps are part of a broader population target aimed at keeping Australia's overall growth rate within what the government calls sustainable limits. In practice, however, it's creating bottlenecks across the entire system. Skilled workers who are urgently needed by employers are stuck offshore. Families are waiting years to reunite. Students are being pushed into over-competitive programs with no guarantee of a post-study visa. The new approach is a clear message. Australia is no longer pursuing high migration for economic growth at any cost. Instead, immigration is being framed as a privilege reserved for a select few who can deliver immediate value under stricter criteria. While some applaud the move as necessary population management, for many aspiring migrants and current residents, it feels like the door is quietly closing, regardless of how qualified or deserving they may be. Number 7. Stricter compliance and deportation for rule breaches. In 2025, Australia is taking a much harder stance on visa compliance, with an aggressive push to identify and deport individuals who breach even minor visa conditions. Under the new immigration framework, what may have once been considered a simple mistake, like working a few extra hours on a student visa or failing to update your address, can now result in visa cancellation and immediate removal from the country. The government has significantly increased funding for compliance enforcement, including advanced digital monitoring systems, data sharing between agencies, and the use of artificial intelligence to flag suspicious behavior. This includes tracking student attendance, employment records, and even banking activity to ensure all visa conditions are being met. With this level of surveillance, the margin for error is shrinking fast. What's especially concerning is the zero-tolerance policy being applied. Instead of warnings or corrective measures, many migrants are now receiving instant visa terminations, often without the chance to appeal. This means people who have lived in Australia for years studying, working, and contributing to society can be told to leave the country with little notice. Even more troubling is the impact on temporary visa holders, who often juggle complex rules that change frequently. For example, a student working beyond the permitted hours, even unknowingly, is now at risk of being permanently banned from returning to Australia. Similarly, applicants awaiting visa decisions while on bridging visas must follow strict guidelines, or risk being labeled as unlawfully present. This intensified focus on enforcement reflects the government's attempt to clean up the migration system and restore public confidence. But it's also creating an environment of fear and uncertainty for many who are trying to do the right thing. In this climate, a simple oversight can have life-changing consequences, turning dreams of a future in Australia into a sudden deportation order. Number 6. Regional pathways under review. For years, regional migration pathways have served as a vital option for international students, skilled workers, and families seeking a more secure and accessible route to permanent residency in Australia. These programs were designed to attract migrants to less populated areas, helping to address local labor shortages and promote balanced population growth. However, in 2025, these very pathways are now under intense government review, casting doubt over their future and creating uncertainty for thousands of migrants who have built their lives around them. The government is reassessing whether these regional programs are truly meeting their economic goals, or if they are being used as a loophole by applicants simply looking for an easier way into the country. As part of the review, several regional visa subclasses are being reevaluated, and some may be discontinued or restructured entirely. There's also talk of tightening eligibility, increasing the required length of stay in regional areas and demanding stronger proof of ongoing employment or community ties. This change directly affects migrants who move to regional areas with the hope of securing permanent residency through programs like the Subclass 491 or Subclass 494 visas. Many have invested heavily, financially and emotionally, by relocating, enrolling in regional institutions, or taking up hard-to-fill jobs in remote locations. Now, they may find themselves in limbo, unsure if the path they were promised still exists. Even businesses and local governments in regional towns, which have relied on these programs to fill critical workforce gaps, are concerned about the potential fallout. The review risks discouraging future migrants from choosing regional options altogether, undoing years of progress in regional development. As these pathways hang in the balance, thousands of applicants face the real possibility that the rules may change midway through their journey, leaving them stranded in a system that no longer honors the promises it once made. Number 5. No more visa-hopping loopholes. One of the biggest shifts in Australia's immigration strategy in 2025 is the government's crackdown on what's known as visa hopping, a practice where individuals continuously switch between different types of temporary visas to remain in the country long-term, often without a clear pathway to permanent residency. For many, this method has been a survival tactic, allowing them to legally stay in Australia while searching for work, studying, or waiting for other opportunities. But now that loophole is closing fast. The government views visa hopping as a way to exploit the system, particularly when applicants use multiple student visas or bounce between tourist and bridging visas over several years. In response, immigration authorities are introducing stricter caps on repeat applications, limiting how many times a person can apply for certain temporary visas. In some cases, cooling-off periods are being introduced, forcing applicants to leave the country before reapplying. This change is already affecting thousands of people who had no intention to abuse the system, but were simply trying to buy time while navigating complex visa processes. Many of these individuals have spent years in Australia, working, studying, and contributing to society, only to now face the possibility of being forced out due to technical restrictions. Of encouraging visa hopping as a strategy, often profiting from repeat applications and course enrollments. The government has stated clearly that Australia's immigration system should not be seen as a series of temporary workarounds, but rather as a structured pathway with clear outcomes. By removing these options, the government hopes to encourage more genuine, long-term applications. However, for many migrants caught in the middle of this transition, it feels like the ground is shifting beneath their feet, removing the very tools they used to stay afloat in a complicated system. Number 4. Tighter rules on visa extensions. Another major pressure point in Australia's evolving immigration landscape is the introduction of tighter rules on visa extensions, which is leaving thousands of temporary visa holders with limited or no options to remain in the country legally. In previous years, many international students, working holidaymakers, and skilled workers relied on visa extensions to buy time, whether to complete studies, find sponsorship, or transition into a permanent residency pathway. But in 2025, the government is making it significantly harder to extend temporary visas without a very strong and clearly justified reason. The changes are aimed at curbing what authorities see as an over-reliance on temporary visas and reducing the number of people who remain in Australia indefinitely without progressing toward a long-term or permanent solution. Under the new rules, applicants for extensions must now demonstrate genuine progression, such as completing a higher qualification, moving into a more advanced work role, or meeting specific skill shortages. Simply wanting to stay longer or being not ready to leave is no longer considered valid. Bridging visas, which once served as a safety net during application processing times, are also facing more scrutiny. Individuals applying for new visas while onshore may no longer be granted automatic bridging rights, especially if their visa history suggests they've been extending for the sake of staying, rather than with a clear immigration goal in mind. This shift is leaving many in a difficult position. Students nearing graduation may find their post-study options reduced. Workers finishing short-term contracts may be forced to leave without renewal. Even those waiting for a sponsorship or partner visa outcome could face unexpected removals if they fail to meet new extension criteria. The message is clear. Visa extensions are no longer a routine part of the process, but a privilege that must be earned and justified through genuine contribution, progress, or alignment with Australia's evolving immigration priorities. Number 3. New points-based system favors high-income skills. One of the most impactful changes to Australia's immigration policy in 2025 is the overhaul of the points-based system, which now strongly favors high-income earners and in-demand skill sets, particularly in technology, engineering, and healthcare. While the points system has always been a core part of Australia's skilled migration program, the new version places much greater emphasis on economic value, shifting the focus away from general employability to elite qualifications, top-tier salaries, and niche expertise. Under the updated framework, applicants with higher income levels, typically above the 120,000 Australian dollars threshold, receive significantly more points, giving them a clear advantage over other skilled workers, even if they have years of experience in lower-paying but essential industries like hospitality, aged care, or retail. This change reflects the government's strategy to attract what it calls global talent, positioning Australia as a destination for the world's most competitive professionals. While this might make sense from an economic standpoint, it's causing serious concern for thousands of migrants already in Australia who now find themselves no longer competitive under the new rules. Many have spent years gaining local qualifications, working in sectors with ongoing shortages, and contributing to communities only to be told they no longer meet the new criteria, not because they're unskilled, but because their profession doesn't hit the high-income target. Even for those who meet the qualifications, the competition has intensified. The revised points system heavily prioritizes STEM degrees, PhDs, and employment with top-tier companies, leaving others to fall further down the queue, despite being equally committed and capable. Number 2. Stricter English language requirements. In 2025, one of the more controversial updates to Australia's immigration policy is the introduction of stricter English language requirements across multiple visa categories. While English proficiency has always been a part of the migration process, the new standards have raised the bar significantly, particularly for student visas, skilled migration, and partner visas. Applicants are now expected to meet higher minimum scores in internationally recognized tests such as IELTS, PTE, or TOEFL, with no leniency for borderline results. For many, this change feels like an unexpected barrier, especially for individuals who come from non-English-speaking countries but have lived, studied, or worked in Australia for years. Even international students who were previously allowed to enter with lower English scores and take foundation courses are now being screened more rigorously before visa approval. The goal, according to the government, is to ensure that migrants are better prepared to integrate, succeed academically, and contribute effectively to the workforce. However, the reality on the ground is more complex. Thousands of applicants are being denied visas or asked to retake tests, often multiple times, due to minor differences in scores. These tests are expensive, stressful, and not always reflective of a person's real-world communication skills, particularly in a multicultural society like Australia, where many industries operate with diverse language dynamics. The changes also disproportionately affect applicants from low-income backgrounds, who may not have access to high-quality language training or test preparation. Some highly skilled professionals are being held back solely because they missed the required score by a small margin, despite having valuable work experience and qualifications. This shift sends a strong message. Language ability is no longer a soft requirement. It's a gatekeeper. While fluency is important for integration and safety, critics argue that the current approach lacks flexibility and fairness, especially for those who have already proven themselves through work, study, or community involvement in Australia. Number 1. Visa overhaul, major categories scrapped. At the heart of Australia's 2025 immigration reforms is a bold and sweeping visa overhaul, which has seen several major visa categories either completely scrapped or dramatically restructured. This change marks a fundamental shift in how people can enter, stay, and transition to permanent residency in Australia. For years, the system operated with dozens of visa subclasses, many overlapping or loosely regulated. But the government is now streamlining the framework to eliminate what it calls redundant or ineffective pathways. Among the most affected are student visas, temporary graduate visas, and general skilled migration subclasses, some of which are being consolidated or phased out altogether. For example, the temporary graduate, subclass 485 visa, once a popular post-study option for international students, is being restructured to limit stay periods and tie eligibility to more specific high-demand occupations. Similarly, certain working holiday and training visas are also under review, with plans to reduce their availability or cap annual intakes. These changes are designed to make the migration system more efficient and focused, targeting people who can contribute immediately to Australia's economic needs. But for many migrants already in the country, this overhaul feels like the rug has been pulled out from under them. People who spent years working toward a clear visa pathway, completing qualifications, gaining local experience, and following all the rules, are now being told that their route no longer exists. The sudden removal of familiar visa subclasses has also created confusion, as new visa types are rolled out with different requirements, timelines, and application procedures. Migration agents are reporting a spike in inquiries, with many people desperate to understand whether they still qualify for anything at all. This visa reset signals a new era, one where flexibility is limited, options are fewer, and only those who meet very specific criteria will be able to secure a future in Australia. Australia's 2025 immigration reforms represent one of the most significant shakeups in the country's migration history. With new policies designed to tighten control, prioritize high-income earners, and close long-standing loopholes, the landscape has changed dramatically, and for many, it's not in their favor. From the removal of entire visa categories to stricter English language standards and skyrocketing rejection rates, it's becoming increasingly clear that staying in Australia is no longer just about following the rules. It's about fitting into a new, narrower definition of what the country wants. This isn't just policy on paper, it's real lives being affected. International students who once saw Australia as a launchpad for their futures are now facing unexpected exits.